Okay. Some more just got clear to me this morning, so I'm still kind of a little emotional about it. So here's what happened when I came down to Florida. I had a friend with me, and it wasn't appropriate. It really wasn't appropriate timing for me to bring her with me. But there was something I needed to see about myself. And I ended up taking her back to Nashville, and I came back down. I rented this space till the end of November. And I upgraded to like a 2-bedroom. I think I told you that. And I'm really glad I upgraded it. I'm glad I got the space that I have because it has come in handy. I'm taking deep breaths. All right. So basically what I went through was I went through this purge, and I went through like a recalibration, and then I went through a complete ego death. And not just psychologically, but physically. I was literally thought they were going to find my body the next day. My body went into a catabolic and anabolic state where my organs were shutting down. I'm shaking just telling you about it because I'm just really coming out of it, and my body's just starting to get rebalanced. Can you see my lips?
Vaguely, there's a little bit of a shadow, but yeah, they look pale.
Okay. That's not anemia. That's the light that's actually coming through my body now.
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know if you saw my post about the dark body.
I haven't yet.
So I made a post because we hadn't talked about the dark body in the group that we were a part of. So I hadn't really, it really wasn't on my radar. But I had a vision not long ago. I posted a picture of what I saw. There were like these little small rainbows. And that was when my light body was being put together. And I remember walking on a bridge and finding a diamond that was filled with liquid light. And it felt like when I held that diamond is when I was able to see these little rainbows. Okay, now I understand that this is a collective called the Aura Collective. Aurora Collective. Aurora Collective. Okay.
Yeah, deep breath.
All right, so I had after I got here, I had another dream. It was very similar, only I was shown instead of looking in, the atmosphere was dark instead of light, and the same rainbows were in the sky. And that's how I got the download of working on the dark body. I'm still shaking.
Yeah.
Okay. The dark body is about many things. It's about understanding what Satan is, understanding Lucifer, and dismantling our ego. It's about meeting your own evil face to face. So, what I know happened is, whenever I'm speaking, I talk about the who and the what. Well, my who aligned with my what in simplest terms. And
When you say aligned, you mean the same as a tune as well, vibrationally
yeah, I guess you could say that.
merged.
So the death of the ego.
Yeah.
So when you look at the word ego, it's EGO. And I made some notes about that actually this morning when I got up. Is one of the things I wrote down because last night was the first night I actually got a decent night's sleep. I've been up. I was up about every hour and a half.
Mm.
I would get about an hour and a half, and I would go through another process, and I would be so exhausted I'd have to lay down. But when it first started, and I was so sick, I didn't want to get up. And I got a message about rest is to rust. And I could see what was happening in my body, and part of what was deconstructing is the medical background, because I knew that my body was dying. I knew, I mean, I've seen it because I've watched people die,
Right.
and I turned completely gray and like yellow, and I could feel my organs shutting down. I could feel my brain and my liver and my kidneys. Um, so the ego broken down is the eye of God from an outer view. So that's why it's EGO.
I have got. Mm.
So basically, what happened was at the outer dropped off once the ego died. And you can look at that from turning it into EOG, Eye of God. But basically, the eye dropped off.
Mm.
Or not the eye, but the O. The O dropped off. I know that's the Masonic stuff. I think it says EOG on their stuff. So this isn't about Freemasonry or anything like that. I think the old Masons did carry the knowledge, but the new Freemasonry has been infiltrated, and it is not part of the eye of God. So basically, this morning, what I came to realize, because there was a lot of stuff wanting to come through. I was getting downloads about Osiris, which I haven't unpacked yet, but it was showing me a lot about the eye. I was getting a lot of information about the eye, but I also wanted to ground my own physical body and my whole self. Yesterday went on this rampage of organizing and cleaning and just doing things like playing music,
Yeah.
crocheting. It felt like I just needed to be the human, the light being in that space. And I knew that there was info there for me to unpack. And part of me really wanted to unpack it, but I was so exhausted, I needed to just ground. And through doing that grounding, I could feel more of the light energy anchoring in my body. And it feels like as we just kind of step into our joy, at this point, anything that I do that's bringing that lightness to my heart, I can feel more energy coming into my body. And I know that that's going to keep growing. Okay. So what I noticed this morning is the questioning of self is gone. And then I saw the word goo. And I had known about this called black goo for a while, but I knew it as a who and not the what. So I saw it through the left eye instead of the right eye of God. So basically, the black goo is a manipulation of matter on a quantum level that has infiltrated the entire planet. It is nanotechnology that became more than what it originally was when the aurora species was, when their energy was introduced to the earth to begin the ascension process. That which has been controlling this planet began to morph because of that energy. And it created this black goo to come in and infiltrate all of humanity on a deeper level. And that was not foreseen. And this black goo is what caused the crash of the first attempt to ascend this planet. And that was the Ascension Plan A. So another Ascension plan had to be put into place. And the light workers have been basically netted. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Okay. Let it out. Just take a moment and let it out. You're fine. This is a very intense, I'm feeling it in my nervous system. I'm breathing as we're connected just to keep state of where you're
This
at.
has everything to do with why we haven't been able to move forward, but we know it's there in front of our noses. Okay, so the black goo creates, basically what I'm seeing, this is not something I read. It creates space of not having God inside or outside. And that's basically what the New Age movement, if you think about the New Age movement was all about, it really wasn't about connecting to God. It was about learning about deities and, all this other stuff. I didn't
Right.
even know if you were a part of that, but
I'm not fringes, outer fringes of that.
um, so then what I saw in my mind's eye popped up. Basically, they take, and some of this is going to make more sense if you read what I wrote about Satan. And I just posted that a couple of days ago. So they take the dark man, which is the portions of us that we have abandoned, and we view reality, and I use the term left eye because it is going to be easier to the left eye represents the abandonment, where the hemispheres were split. So the left eye is the abandonment of the right side that's in alignment with God. So that's why it's crisscrossed. So
Okay.
the hemispheres split that, like a breaking heart, taking someone's heart and breaking it. That's what they did to us.
Okay.
Did through us, I should say, and we allowed it. It's easy to go into that saying to us instead of through us.
Yeah.
So when we got to this place, we looked at reality using our left eye instead of our right, and having them balanced, because the brain isn't balanced. And I know you've done a lot of your own stuff on the brain.
Yeah.
And then what I saw was they use that function for the people who want fame and fortune and all of that, who are very disconnected from self. They use that as a way to lure them into a place that's very hard for them to get out of. So they're basically sell their soul
Hmm.
in order to become famous. And I had to meet that part of myself that I was in another lifetime, where I was a part of that adrenochrome project. And I was a male in that experience. And at first, when I saw it, I didn't quite understand. But it was basically a man who had gained some form of immortality, and it was a bloodthirst kind of immortality. It was very imbalanced, very adrenal driven. That's how I made the adrenochrome connection. I watched how he was very self-serving, and I was shown an instance where a woman went after me, um, and she wanted to kill me because I had crushed her and I didn't care. And in the process of trying to kill me, which wasn't possible, she killed herself.
Hmm.
So I got to see enough of that I understood. I understood the pieces. And that's part of going through the dark body. It takes it much deeper than the work we did with soul integration. It's really, you've got to be okay with going into the dark and not just working as a light worker. You have to be willing to go in there and dig. So what some of this started to come into my awareness, these realizations, was I got on Facebook for a moment this morning, and what popped up was a friend of mine in Australia. She was a part of the Theo group. She just recovered from cancer, and they're putting together a like a spa kind of place. She just posted that her son passed away. I never got to know her like real deeply, but I knew we had a connection because there was a connection to the Merlin and the Druids. I think at that point in France, she knew the connection more deeply than I did because I had so much black goo going on. When I saw the post, I mean, I was in tears over her post. And I don't usually have responses like that, even though and I think it has a lot to do with what I did for a living and all that black goo. But I
Right.
knew that that immediate response to something like that, there was something had changed within me. So I took a minute and breathed into the emotion, and I'm like, something is interesting here. Something's new. And I want to see this with the God eye. And I breathed into it, and I saw the word harvest. Now, I just made a huge post about the harvest. And some of what I posted in that I didn't see as deeply as I see it now. I knew on a level what was happening, and I put it out there. And now I have a deeper knowing, another level that I can see that has come in the last couple of days. And then I wrote, shit is about to hit the fan. The word shit, when we speak, sometimes we don't realize that it is literally God moving through us to show us. So the S is the root chakra. It's all those things that we hold in a safe box because we're afraid. So hit is like a hit and run. So basically that is the hit and run that's about to happen. And it's the harvest. So the hit is the harvest of the IT. So those who are still covered in black goo and they don't know it, many of which who think they're awake and they're not, that's where it's going to happen. That's how they're going to be able to harvest. And some of that I kind of knew. I started talking about quantum banking on my Facebook page. And some of that was coming through, but I didn't know it on the level I know it now. So then what I wrote, and what I'm talking about right now is just kind of what has come in this morning since aligning with the Godhead. Grief is either love on fire or it's the wraith, the dark man. Love on fire is the human, the fire of the human. Okay, then what came through was the word mold. Mold is connected to the black goo. It is a physical manifestation of the black goo. So when people have mold in their homes, then that energy is in that home. And it is detrimental to abandon ship.
It's a physical manifestation of the energy that's in that place.
Yes, it's a physical manifestation of it.
Yeah.
So the black goo, what I'm getting is literally a mold within the body. It's like a fungus. And I'm getting that right now as we're talking. Let me set
Covering the
this
light
down
a
for a
bit.
second. Let me have just a moment. So the mold is about the heart chakra. And they are using the black goo to prevent humanity from connecting to the heart chakra. Right now, they've kept everyone locked into the first three chakras, 1, 2, and 3, so that we can't reach the fourth. Now, we could even look at the word mold. The M in mold, if you break it down, it's a 13, which is a 4. Here. You look at the word old. It's representation of the dog on the left. The left eye represents our consciousness as the dog. And I've done a lot of writings on the dog.
I'm not familiar with that term from our conversations.
Okay, so I've posted some stuff about it. You take the word God and you flip it, it's the word dog.
That's right.
And when we're not connected in alignment to the right eye of God, we're playing in the left eye. We're playing the dog instead of the aligned God.
It's like the mirror inverse.
And that's what the physical dog is here to teach us, to show us how we chase our tail. And I use the word, you hear the term devil in the detail.
Right.
That's how they use the mainstream media to keep everyone distracted with the details that are coming out. All of these things about what is being done in front of our eyes. The thing is that these details are keeping people, not everyone, spinning. And when we see the word devil, that's all it is. That is the devil, is those details that keep you from connecting to the inner God. So if you take the word devil which is a D, 4, again, and you take the word VIL is veil. So the word devil is a spell in the place of the word veil, because it's really, if we reach our heart, which is the D, it brings the veil down, because our heart is what holds our power. So a lot of what I'm saying, we've known these pieces, but because of the black goo, we couldn't access the knowledge through God's eyes. We could only see it through the left eye, the dog.
Right.
So I knew that coming here was important. The location I'm in was manipulated, and it became manipulated about 5,500 years ago when we look at linear time. It was the time in Egypt where a pharaoh came in, and we've spoken about who that pharaoh is. We both know who she is in this life. And it's my understanding that we were trying to dismantle all of what's been going on at that time, and something went wrong. A black hole or wormhole was created, which created a wormhole here where I am.
Okay. In Florida.
Yes, physically here. And it has controlled energy in Mount Temple and the energy of Easter Island, Chile. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
All right, so basically, when the aurora energy came into the planet, the, the beings and the network that had been controlling all of humanity responded by creating this black goo that re-netted everyone. So it created basically a bigger mess. It's like taking tar and pouring it over the planet. And the tar is both organic and inorganic. So that's why a new plan had to be put in place. It's why we had the entry of the teachers coming in, trying to seed this planet in a new way, hence the time of Yeshua. I don't believe he was the only one that came. So and as we know, they were able to also affect that time frame. But enough change was seeded that that's what we're seeing come forward now. So all along the way since then, other things have been getting put into place to prevent the awakening, to create a way that they can continue to survive off of the blood of humanity and the energy field of humanity. So, a couple of days ago, I was still recuperating from my near death, you could say. It was really an ego death. I thought when I first posted about I had an experience, it felt like I went through the eye of Awa. It wasn't over. The worst part of it was yet to come. In my case, it had to be done in layers. I don't know that the experience would be the same for every person. Um, in my case, it had to come off in layers. So, part of the first layer was all of the urges I've had to post and speak my truth and stand in my power, which I had been doing on Facebook. And I told you, I know everybody thinks I've lost my mind, but for me, it was part of gaining my personal power back. It was allowing myself to feel the frustration and anger about what I saw going on in the world, even though I knew inwardly, I knew that I was connected to it, even if I didn't know the specifics. I knew that it was reality expressing through me for me to see. Now, to someone looking at me from an outward perspective, might have thought I'd gone off and derailed. But that wasn't my experience that I was having. For me, it was a freedom of expression, of knowing that I could say whatever I wanted to say. I could stand in my power for what I knew to be true from within me, and let go of what other people thought of me. So that was a healing that I was going through. Through doing that, it helped me to start dismantling what was locked in my third energy center. Then I started being able to access my fourth. Once I started accessing my fourth energy center, a number of things began to happen. One, I had a deeper trust of myself, a deeper trust of the knowing that was already being given to me, but I wasn't acting on it because of the black goo. So I started acting on my heart and not allowing my head to play. It played a part, but less of a part. So as soon as I made the decision to leave Indiana, I started getting symptoms, physical symptoms I had never had before. And I knew that I was stepping into something new. I knew that stepping away was going to help me see what I came into this incarnation for. Um, so even though I was dragging my feet in complacency, I'd found a comfort zone from all the traveling I did. And all that traveling was, it was actually a good thing. It's part of some grid work that I'm here to do, came to do, and I didn't know it consciously. So some of that has been coming in too. I'm going to try to stay on track here. So I got my car packed, and I was feeling all this energy like surging in me, and I felt like I was going to combust from within, like a lot of tension in my body, because I knew that I had, in my writings one day, all of a sudden I stumbled across Sarasota, and I know I wrote out how that all happened, but it kind of all just happened in the moment, so I don't have it in a linear way of telling you. But it lined up, and I saw it, and I'm like, Florida? Really? Like, Florida was nowhere on my radar. Not because I was always so sensitive to the heat. And some of that had shifted because I had decided to go off of my synthroid medication, which was a piece of me being able to wake up. I had been told whenever I was a kid and they put me on that medication that if I ever went off of it, I would go into a coma. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because as I started to connect to my heart, I saw, and I'd already, I mean, I had been weaning off of it for the past couple of years. I felt like it's felt like an anchor around my ankles. I'm like, there's got to be another way. So when I started to wake up in my heart space, and that might sound weird to anybody listening to this, is I just knew that I had to come off of it. The more I came off of it, the more I could see. And I just started connecting with my intuition in foods, which was one of the best things I could have ever done for myself. Because in the moments where I fell back into the left brain of the nurse practitioner,
Yeah.
and would look up what supports the thyroid, I was eating all those foods. I was craving those foods that my body needed to support my thyroid. What I didn't know, which is another piece that I had to dismantle out of the left brain because it's all medical, was when you're on a medication for a long time, your body changes. And so the thyroid gland stops making its own stuff when you start literally providing the hormone for it. It's going to stop making it. It's like giving a patient in a hospital oxygen. And if you give them too much oxygen, they go into respiratory failure, which is what I think is happening to a lot of the COVID patients because of the misunderstanding of what the virus really is. And it's not that that's happening on purpose, but it's just part of our awakening. So that's why people are told not to put their oxygen level over 2 when they have oxygen at home, because it can cause that failure. Ooh, I'm so dizzy.
A lot of energy here. I'm just like
Yes, there is.
feeling it pulsing through me as we're connecting.
And it's helping me to connect more in my body, connect more of the energy. It's going to keep streaming in and building. So what I'm realizing is the light body and the dark body are kind of melding together now. And I've got these diamond codes that are like unwrapping. And I'm anchoring in something that's new. And that's all I know about it so far, because I haven't really sat and sit with it in this moment yet. So you're getting like the new stuff I'm talking about is new from this morning. If you want to make sense of some of the terms that I'm using, go to my Facebook page and read some of my most recent entries, because it's all relevant to this moment.
Okay.
It'll save me some time in explaining right now.
Yeah.
It'll help me keep on track.
Sure.
Okay, so as I started going through these symptoms after I left Indiana, it literally felt like my body was being attacked. Like someone taking a laser gun and shooting me. And I did have a dream about someone shooting red lasers at me. And I did talk about that in one of my posts. I don't know if it was on my blog or on Facebook. Okay, so I was grounded enough in my heart, back into my heart, that I stopped, and I had released enough fear that I looked at this person who looked like someone from a spaceship. Like it was a male, and he had a triangle on his chest that was upright. And he was shooting red lasers, the red laser beam. And I remember doing these acrobats, like, I don't know, Neo style.
Right. That's what mine.
Yeah, I was like Neo style, rolling, flipping and rolling around like, you see in the movies. And I looked at him, and in that moment, I just pointed to the triangle on his chest instead of looking at him and focusing on what he was trying to do. I said, tell me about that. The energy shifted because I didn't take what he was doing as a defensive. I saw it. I saw him with my right eye and not with my left eye of fear.
Right.
Which showed my growth from being that version of identifying out of fear instead of identifying out of love. So that completely shifted. And I know he smiled, put his gun down, and we went together to have a conversation. I'm releasing some energy in telling you about it. Now, when I say this, I'm not talking about a galactic being that's outside of me. This was someone I knew or was me in another incarnated experience. It was a oneness connection. It wasn't he out there like God outside. We were connected. So we had a conversation that I could not remember when I woke up, but it is pertinent to the conversation that I'm having with you now. That's why I'm bringing it up. Okay. So I wrote a lot of stuff down since mid-June when all of this started. This feeling like my body was being attacked. And on a sense, it was being attacked. I just didn't have the real eyes to know the depth of where it was coming from and the understanding of it. There was that left version of me that was in the not having an answer and wanting to know the answer, that was starting to disentangle. So I leave, I get my car packed, and I leave reluctantly, but I had an experience in dream state where my father came in, and I was getting nudges for months to go. And I knew that this area in Florida is where I was being guided to go. I had resistance about coming here because not only at the same time, when I discovered this location, I discovered the history of it. And so since I had enough of the left eye in place, there was some fear. I knew that some of what I had physically been experiencing over the last 9 years was about keeping me from bringing the knowledge that I'm bringing through now. They, I'm saying they, even though this will all come full circle when I'm finished. There was a knowledge that those who wanted to stay in control of this planet, they know when those of us who have the ability, and we've done it before, we've had the ability to interfere with what they're doing. So 5,500 years ago in Egypt, they won the battle, so to speak. So at this time right now, we're back. And I don't know how many more have reconnected in this way. I know that what I just went through has never been done before, because it was a plan B. It hasn't been easy. And I remember as it was happening, I kept saying, there's no manual for this. There's no manual for this. There's no manual for this. And I'm just getting this part. They didn't know what was going to happen. Because in some ways they can support us through it, but there is still a potential that you can pass away, in the sense of, if enough inner work has not been done before you step into this, and you haven't merged enough of your the who and the what together, that you'll literally pass and loop back through. You can tell I'm still anchoring. Yeah. I need a tissue. So I'm going to pause for just a second, okay? Wow. We just had a full pledge purge. Since it's been so long since I've been able to really connect to emotion, what's been happening with my physical body is I literally throw up when energy needs to be released out of my body, and I can't get it out fast enough.
Yeah.
It literally creates this bubble of energy in my stomach, and it starts to move up. Even if there's nothing in my stomach, it comes out like air. And usually when I get into something really intense and deep that hasn't been spoken yet, when I hit on one of those layers that have been locking down the energy centers, that's when it happens. Because when I went through the heart unlock, it happened too. So you're the first person that I've been able to verbalize all this. This is something else, Todd. Okay. So I started having a lot of physical symptoms, to the point where I stopped in Nashville, and I didn't know where I was going to stay in Florida when I got here. And so this was second or third week of June. But when I got on the interstate to head to Nashville, this gigantic turtle came out of nowhere. And I don't know if I told you about it. He was the biggest turtle I'd ever seen in my life, and he was on I-65. And as I'm coming off the ramp, this turtle's right in front of me, and I'm like, WTF? The hell are you doing on I-65? And he was so big, there was nearly no way to get around him.
Wow.
And if there had been another car in the left lane, we would have collided, because I knew I was going to have an accident if I hit the turtle. So I just trusted and went around. I didn't have time to look at my mirrors or nothing. I just went around him. And my heart, you know how your heart goes,
Yeah.
and I took some deep breaths, and I was like, suicidal motherfucker. Like, I know you've been around a long time, but
Definitely was not in the fast lane.
no, but there was a lot of symbology shown to me through that turtle. Because, you know, we talk about immortality and things like that, and the turtle represents that aspect of immortality. And we were never meant to go through the death cycle the way we go through it. Oh, my voice is opening up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in Peru, I saw a lock here, which I described to the people that were in my group. And that's been shedding away. I've even been not knitting, but crocheting a scarf that represents the tearing down of that lock as I'm crocheting it.
Okay.
So
Cool.
that's been a really cool experience.
Yeah.
I need to kind of shift this into a lighter tone here, because it's like an intense subject. At the same time, it's important for me individually to keep my heart light so that I can let more of the light energy anchor, because that's what's helping me see more broadly. Okay, so the physical symptoms really got so bad that I would take a step and try to walk, and it felt like I was a voodoo doll. And someone was taking needles and sticking them through my legs, like trying to prevent me from moving forward. And it was a literal, like I could take one step and literally feel this jabbing pain. So because of how uncomfortable I was feeling in my body when I got to Nashville, and I reached out to a friend who I knew. We had talked about being roommates before, and I knew that she was going through her own challenges in trying to keep her business, going with all the quarantine stuff and all of that. And I thought, well, this would support both of us. So I'll reach out to her and tell her that I'm interested in being roommates. And in my beingness, it felt like, yes, it's not going to Florida in this moment, but I can take a breath and feel into what's happening here with my body. And also be supportive of someone else, because it would give her, a little bit of cushion, financially. And we were like-minded enough that we weren't falling for the COVID mask stuff.
Right.
That I at least knew we didn't have that piece we would be struggling with as roommates. So she wasn't ready for me to come and didn't really see it coming when I reached out. So I said, well, take some time and meditate on it and see if that is something you even want, and it's okay if you don't. I said, I really was originally headed to Florida, but I've been feeling like I want to be around friends and I want to connect. And I felt we could support each other. And both of us have been talking about potentially being roommates for a long time. I said, but if it's not good timing for you, completely fine by me, and I'll just head down to Florida. So I went and stayed with a friend where I usually stay when I go into town, but I'm not going to move in. It's not the kind of friendship where I'm going to just move in. And he's always been very supportive in that way. And so I go there, and knowing that he is a mask wearer. And that was one of the things, the energies I was moving through at the time, was finding peace over all of that, because, I was a nurse practitioner, and I know those masks, I just know. We won't make this about the mask. So I was coming to peace with what was happening around me, because I was angry that I saw people being manipulated. And when I got there, he and I were still able to connect because we honor our friendship more than our differences. So we just connected on what we had in similarity, and we didn't talk about the differences. And we had a great time. So I stayed there for 3 or 4 days, and then she was ready, made room for me at her home. And during that time, I was still feeling like my body was being attacked, and it was really uncomfortable. And I was still left brain jumping in, the nurse of me jumping in, going, well, do I need to change my supplements? Blah, 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 blah. And also knowing that there were, we'll just say, humans that did not want me to continue the path that I was on. I could tell that the energy of Tennessee, where I used to live, had shifted dramatically while I was gone. It felt more intense. It was almost uncomfortable. So I ended up moving into her house, and I just have a carload of stuff to take out, and I was having physical difficulty unloading the car. I had no difficulty loading it up, other than one box was kind of too heavy for me. Somebody helped me, but I was okay. I loaded the car just fine, but I was having great difficulty unloading it. I was getting short of breath. I was having so much pain in my body that if I took a step, I was being stabbed, in a literal ice pick stabbing sensation. And so I had someone help me get some basics up into the house. And I just said, I'll unpack the rest little by little. I'll just bring it each day. I'll bring something in. And I noticed some shifts in personalities around people that I knew that I was interacting with. there was some triggering happening when I was around people. And it was more for me than it was about for them, because it was trying to show me some things that I couldn't see in the moment, but it felt like it was at me at that moment because of how I was feeling and the way I was relating to the physical experience at the time. Um, so after, I don't know, a week or two, I started feeling a little bit better. I started getting some of my strength back. And she did sound healing, sound therapy stuff for a living, and um, also a lot of different massage techniques. So I had her do some lymphatic and craniosacral therapy on me. Um, and that was a big help. And me being in her space was creating a little bit of discomfort for her also. So there was some ruffling that happened when I first moved in. And I could tell she was doing her best to communicate that she wasn't used to having somebody in her space. I mean, it was her sanctuary. And I knew that there was growth that we're both experiencing. So we got through the first couple of weeks and seemed to be melding more energetically. Because at first it was kind of like, this may not work out. And we both acknowledged that. And I told her, I was like, I'm okay with packing my car and leaving. You just give me I can't do this, and it's fine. I still love you. I mean, I don't want to be somewhere where it's uncomfortable for someone, because it's uncomfortable for me too. I'm not going to try to force it to be. So I just became more mindful of her energy, and we kind of did that for each other. And then we found where we could sync a little easier. And after a couple of weeks, she went to visit her father, and I took about 10 days to balance my body while she was gone. Spent some time under a tree and got some writing done, and did a lot of unpacking of stuff that was coming to my knowledge. My symptoms continued, but they were less physical, even though I was still getting physical stabbing, but it wasn't as severe, and I was having less shortness of breath. That's what was really getting my attention, was the shortness of breath that I was experiencing. Um, so, and my left brain was going, well, it's not COVID, because I had already spiritually seen what COVID's about. But I knew it was something. And I knew where I had been, there's no 5G. So I was like, maybe this dense energy I'm feeling, I knew 5G had been implemented while I was gone. And I noticed the area that I was staying in, there was a lot of cameras. It was really spooky. Like, it's kind of a rural area. It's not like the inner city. And everywhere I drove, there was cameras at every freaking light. And I kept looking like, what the is up with all these cameras? And I'm like, yeah, there's one thing to have cameras, but this was tense cameras. Like, every single light. And so I was just kind of making mental notes, and I would go into some of these stores like Kroger's, and nearly every person had a mask on. Nearly everyone. So I felt like I was walking through the Twilight Zone. People staring at me like I am the virus in the store. And but just noticing what I was noticing, breathing and grounding. And I got to where, instead of seeing the person with the mask on, I would look past the mask and just talk to them like they didn't have it on. But it took me a little bit of time because of what the energy I was feeling from them. So when I got into that space, now it doesn't bother me so much because I don't care if they've got it on or off. But it also lets me know where they are, um, and how they're viewing what's happening around them. So it gives me a little bit of a broader view of the person without having to read their field.
Yeah.
Energetically. They're showing it to you.
Right.
So, wow. Whew. So, long story short, for that part, is I get a little more feeling better, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go down to Florida for about a month and kind of see what's there for me, why I felt so pulled to go there. But I wanted to feel better in my physical body because I knew that I had some fear about coming here. And I didn't want both the physical and the mental going on at the same time. So I wanted to give myself a breather. And then I found the location that I'm at, and I put in for a whole month to come down. If I'm going to drive that far, I'm going to stay a while. So I just brought a suitcase full of stuff. And then the day before I left, I had this like grand idea to invite someone to come with me. Well, on a personal level, it wasn't the best decision, but I have a soul connection to this person, and I felt like it would do us good to do some inner work together. And I knew some stuff would come up because every time we spend any good quantity of time together, it is there's a lot of growth that happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to get into all of that in this conversation. But throughout the days that we were together, I finally came to an understanding of why we were having a hard time communicating. And it's because of the way she was viewing her experience was different than the way it's like being on a different hill of viewing your experience. I had shifted to an inner view of my experience, and the shift that she was having was still connecting to things as if they were happening to her and not necessarily through her for her. But it was like she was on this bridge straddling both worlds, and it was pulling her in two ways. And so on one hand, she was connecting to the inner because she's very, very connected. And the outer world was still, the outer version was still pulling on her because of her, this is just my knowing, is feeling like she doesn't have a family. And that her family is out there trying to reconnect with her. And the approach she was taking to it was creating more pain. And I could see that pain. And in my attempt to provide a different viewpoint, it was creating more pain instead of helping. And once I saw that, and I saw how she was straddling the two worlds, and because of the straddling of the two worlds, she was bringing with her some of the nefarious. And we actually had this experience together because we literally have an oversoul connection. So at one point, we had the same oversoul. And um, so that was that part of me that wanted to still be, because I've played her mother before, I'm sure she's played mine. So I still had that attachment of wanting to be that mothering. And I could see what was happening. And I knew through my own inner work I had done what she potentially could be making a decision to do. And I knew that journey very well. And I went into rescue mode, savior mode. And she went into defensive mode, of not wanting to be rescued. So I had to see that part of me through that experience, that I can't interfere with someone else's decisions. They have to make them on their own. So we finally were able to sit down and express individually. And I really sat and listened to what she was saying to me. And I knew in that moment that I had to let her choose, and I had to make peace with it. And I wasn't going to be able to um, it wasn't my place to influence her on that level. And this was her soul's path. She was able to express her deepest fear to me. And that's what helped me to see why she was struggling between the two worlds. And it's one thing to have knowledge that would help someone, but if they are here to have a different experience, they have to have it in order to see their own battle. So I let go of that. And then I also started seeing some stuff around unconditional love, and how I was being more unconditional with others than I was being with myself. And that I needed to refocus that unconditional love towards me. Um, and once I saw that piece, um, I told her that we were going to head back to Nashville. Because I knew in that moment the best thing I could do for myself was to take her back to Nashville, and she wanted to go back early anyway. So we packed up and left, and I dropped her off. And I knew in that moment that um, I needed to step away from her energy and let her make her own decisions. And I knew that I needed to step into what was next for me. So, um, so that's what we did. I dropped her off, and it was hard kind of stepping away when you can see on a soul level of the potential of what's going to happen. So after I stepped away, I had to make peace with that. I spent about 2 weeks before I actually got back to Florida to reconnect with a couple of friends there, because I knew I was stepping into something big for my own growth, but I didn't know what. And I knew it was going to be difficult. And I wanted to go and see my brother again and my mom, because as we stepped into this time of harvest, I didn't know if I'd ever see them again.
Yeah.
So as the deeper the broadening of the view of what's happening on this planet, it's kind of a gift and a curse. um, so I go there, and everyone seems to be fine, but they can see that I'm physically not fine.
Right.
So what it did was it put a lot of fear into my family, because they could see something dramatic was happening to me through me. They saw this to me. And my brother went into fear, and I was getting pulled aside and asking, what's going on. My brother's really worried about you, because physically I looked terrible. I was swelling up. I was literally waking up with water, like huge water bags under my eyes. I was in pain. I was moving very slowly. It was affecting my speech, and some of that is getting better now. I think it's now for me, it's moving the energy by getting this information out to the public, not only for my own personal well-being, um, but it's what I chose to do in service. Um, so I spent several days there. I took a blow-up bed. My brother had a space in his downstairs, and went and spent some time with my mom. Saw some positive shifts with her. She and I were able to go visit my brother, and we had a um, so I just saw this. It was the Last Supper. I didn't know until just now.
Take a couple minutes. I'm going to take a real quick break, just a bio break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Last supper. That hit. That was a moment.
You purged?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that it was, I had to ask myself before I reached out to you. I had to make sure it wasn't from a place of savior, because I could see you in my field. And there was two people really in my field that I knew could hear what I'm talking about. And it was very relevant for their work on the planet. And so I had to, within myself, know that I was coming from a place of in service and not as a savior place.
Yeah. Right.
I was making sure I took the pause off. Because out of any recording, Todd, that we've ever done, this is the most, this is important. Do you mind if I share this publicly?
No, it's fine.
Because I was trying to set up my camera as we connected by phone to sit down and try to explain all of this verbally in a way that I could put up. And I think you holding space for me was that was a component that I would not have had. And so I'm very grateful that you were able to connect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Timing was perfect. It's been building
Okay.
up, and I knew
Yeah.
for time to connect, but I didn't
Yeah.
know that it was on for you. But it was, the space was being cleared.
Right. That's why I was like, you know, if you, the sooner the better. That's why my text said that.
Right.
Because I was literally going through all of my camera equipment going, okay, I've got all this fucking equipment and I don't know how to use it all. But I can use Zoom.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, the last time we tried to connect on Zoom from here, I couldn't connect.
Right.
Kind of ironic that there's a mower in the background. And there's been a huge like tropical storm come through here, so the light in the past 24 hours has been kind of dimmed. Because I was wanting to sit in a way so you could see the light coming through my lips.
Your lips.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's coming through my eyes too. And when I first started to notice it, okay, my medical mind went, "You're fucking anemic."
Yeah.
But I know how to check for anemia, and I'm looking at my body going, I'm not showing it anywhere else. So I had to really, part of the ego breaking down was to let go of looking at some of the physical changes as something bad. And I mean, I was like testing my fingernails. I was like, no, That's not an alien. And I kept doing this with my eyes. And I kept going, ah, in the mirror.
Right?
Because I could see all the other changes. And I was ashen, like deeply ashen. And then I went through a couple of days where I was very yellow.
Yeah. Jaundice.
Because, oh my God, so much so that I would get enough energy to run to the store to get some supplies, and people were staring at me. And I was like, okay, are they staring at my white lips or my orange skin or both? Because I know I looked odd, but it kind of made me a little self-conscious. I was like, I mean, literally heads were turning, and I was like, just breathe, get your shit and go. Because I mean, I'm sure I looked like the boogeyman at that point. The people are walking around with their mask on, and here I am with
No mask.
ashen yellow skin and white lips. It's kind of
Well, you've
funny
totally
now.
changed a lot just since we've been on the call. So just
Yeah,
your color and your energy, your grounding, and everything is getting back into the body and getting integrated back in. So your coloring just looks completely different from when we started.
yeah, yeah. And I'm feeling like I'm anchoring through my feet now instead of it all spinning up here in my head. Because I've been here by myself and not had anyone to talk to. And so it's probably why I've gotten so dizzy when the energy comes in. Being on the beach helps a lot.
Yeah.
But it's the rainy season, so you know, and I'm careful about how long that I've been going out. I'm up to about an hour and a half now, and what I've noticed is it's like my body is eating the sunlight. It's like
Hmm.
literally eating the sunlight. So my face will look really, really tan when I get back. And within 2 days, the tan is faded. Like literally I don't know if you ever saw one of those dolls that you sit in the sun.
Yeah.
It was like a little Chrissy Barbie doll.
Uh-huh.
And you can turn her head and she tans and she's got blonde hair and brown hair. Okay. So I feel like that damn tanning doll. That I go out in the sun and I get the tan, but if you take her out of the sun, she becomes white again. And instead of, so what's happening that I'm getting is I tan, it's filling my internal battery like a DC battery. Like the sun is literally um, filling me with light energy. Because once I broke free my third chakra, um, I was fully disconnected from the Moloch, which is that battery we have talked about in the past that supports the parasitic programming. And I got a lot of info about that and how if they see you as a human, not of a use to society, they start withdrawing some of that energy to your physical body. Those who are more locked in and help the parasitic program exist are the ones getting more of the energy. Because it was really interesting. I had been seeing people around me really looking vibrant and like they were thriving, and I was seeing myself as losing vitality. And I was like, what the fuck is happening to me? That's what your mind goes to.
Right.
And so I didn't have the understanding that I have now. Like even a woman that goes into menopause, and when their eggs run out, they deem them less use. Um, and I'll probably end up doing a video over that whole subject. But when when I decided to um, completely and fully step away from the healthcare system, knowing what I knew about how the structure was put into place and how the system is run, um, that's when they started disconnecting me from the battery. And that's when I started to see a decline in my health. Um, and that has nothing to do with um, the stuff that I've been dealing with in my stomach. That is part of them using my physical body for nefarious reasons, but I was still being given energy because I was part of the system. So they had taken away just enough, but not enough to where I felt like I was losing my vitality, you know? It was like, yeah, I had this physical manifestation that bothered me, but I still felt like I had vital energy. But the more decisions that I made that didn't support that parasitic programming, the more of that vital energy was being withdrawn from me. So that's why when I talk about that black goo in the Moloch, there is an inorganic artificial intelligence and organic intelligence that is operating, that's able to connect within us. And the black goo is what gives them the access, because it keeps, we are in such a powerless state when we have more black goo there, that they're able to carry out their agenda. And that's why it was so important. All the things that Trump has done on this planet have been so important. He's not saved humanity, but he has his, there's like two versions of Trump here that's going on. And that's where we see the tug of war, or Trump hate, Trump love. But that's part of duality. And it's all going to come down to if that person is relating to that president as their own fear, they're relating to their own fear, they're going to see the Antichrist. And if they're not, they're going to know from a broader perspective what he's doing. But there's, from that broader perspective, there's also another layer. So the whole Q thing has a duality to it also. The quantum banking that everyone's talking about, it has duality also. There is the inner duality and the outer duality. Now, not all who decided to follow the Q or pay attention to the gematria that Trump has been providing through his tweets and through his speeches, not all have been able to see that level and see him as a savior, rescuer. And he is not that at all. But what he did do is he was able to dismantle much of the oligarchy and much of the goo that had covered the souls of the ones in Hollywood. Um, he's been able to remove the big players. And by removing those big players and taking control of some of the mass media and our internet. So those who are still asleep, fully asleep, are just watching mainstream media. They have no idea what's already unfolded on this planet. They have
Yeah.
no idea how many nefarious ones were working in Hollywood. They, like, I could do 12 videos just on that alone. And it's one of the reasons I didn't post. There are some folks that have been taken out of the picture that represented what was holding the 3D matrix in place, preventing a lot from waking up to the broader knowing that I'm talking about now. Um, so it's basically given everyone, I'd say, at least a 6-month breather to get their shit together. Um, but in the meantime, the harvest has already begun. So I had made a post about the harvest, um, and it was to help eliminate some fear, but also talk about the harvest as something that we as human beings um, may not have wrapped our minds around yet. Um, I can clearly see more of it today than I could 2 days ago when I posted the article. It is just a little more piece of what goes along with it. So I knew that there is a negative alien agenda at play, and that is the deeper component outside of what we've been seeing in our physical eyes in the media. So we see other human beings being really cruel to each other and wanting to have power and control. But those beings were actually infiltrated by this group. And some of these beings are actually able to shapeshift and look human and not be human. Some were just covered in black goo who were really so mind controlled that their actions were not the actions of their soul, divine self. It was the operating of that left brain that they couldn't do anything about at that point.
No.
And they'll have to work through that. The ones that are still here on the planet who may be waking up to this, what I'm speaking of now, may have an opportunity to make a different choice before the harvest completely ends. I'm not going to say I know all the information about the harvest, but I'm going to share with you what I do know right now. That um, the black goo is a significant piece of it. The nanotechnology has been on this planet for a really long time. Um, it's being put in the food, it's in the water. And I kept telling you when we would talk and this subject would come up how I felt really uncomfortable about the nanotechnology. And I wanted to look into it, but I didn't want to do it from my thinking brain. That's why I hadn't done a lot of research on it. Um, I wanted that deeper understanding instead of taking the dog tail and running with it. Because when you run at something from your mind instead of receiving it through your heart, you're being the dog in the left brain, chasing your tail. And yeah, you might get some answers and might be able to tell everybody pieces of it that are happening, but then you're creating more dogtails by just giving something else to chase.
Right.
So all these different subjects that have come up in the mainstream media with violence, blacks against whites, Antifa, adrenochrome, saving the children, all of it are dogtails. The children are us. Literally us. We are the children. Are they pulling shit out of the bunkers? Yes. Are they destroying things in the bunkers? Yes. Has there been the manipulation of DNA? Yes. All of these things are true, but they're true in maybe some forms that people haven't considered yet. And it's not just looking at it as an outer of what's happening out there. It's happening inside of every human being, every single one of us. And that's the only way that we can step forward, is to recognize that. And those who are able to recognize what I'm talking about with you right now, will be able to move forward to the new earth. And when I'm speaking of the new earth, I'm speaking of the planetary changes that you and I talked about in one of our meetings that we've had together on Zoom. I told you I had this experience where you and I were literally flying, and the new earth was here, and you were showing me around. But that's an example of how we've had to relate to reality being locked down. So they had my first 3 chakras locked down, but they didn't get my upper. My upper was still open. So I was able to see things that were happening through my dream state, but it comes through differently and you have to interpret it. Since I didn't have my other earth-bound chakras connected to my upper, it seemed like I was living 2 realities. I couldn't understand the interconnectedness of it all and the way I can connect to it now. So I really feel like a lot of people we have that are in hospitals who have diagnoses of different conditions, that's the only thing that's going on with them. They have that disconnect in their energy system. And if we can get some of these psychotherapists to make that connection, and I think some have been making some of those connections that, are doing this kind of work, that are helping them. But I think, I know that a lot of that's just going to fall away, because those are going to be some of the people who have the biggest awakenings ever, because they've been living 2 worlds and been told they're crazy.
Right.
And they're not crazy. They're misunderstood. Hell, through all of this, I stop and go, you fucking crazy. I have been doing that on this path all this time, going, I'll be talking to my brother and I'll literally say, it's your crazy sister talking. Because I know what it sounds like to some people when I'm speaking, that it sounds like a crazy person talking. But until I was able to bring the real world and the crazy world together, there was this thing in between, and that's the hemisphere break.
Right.
And some people, they've been able to shut all of it down, and they can't connect at all. And through this experience, I know I was born fully connected, because in this moment, I know that I am that person that I came in to be before everyone got a hold of me.
Right.
You know, but, you know, there's more to that later. But so the black goo. I want to go back to the black goo.
Okay.
What I'm feeling right now is it's really it's what holds their ability in to do the harvest is the black goo. It's not just our fears, because if the black goo wasn't there, we would see the fears and they wouldn't have the hook. Some of the souls that have already been harvested, we can still, we're not leaving them behind. But right now, the focus must be on what's happening right now. And we have a small window of opportunity. And I haven't heard or connected with anyone else who's seeing this picture. I haven't seen anyone on social media talking about this in this way. I've seen some things that, you know, I've known that have been getting shared, that's been seen in the field, but not expressed in a way that can be understood by more people. So, get more energy moving through me. So, removing the black goo. It's just removing enough of it that helps each person to connect to their heart, because that puts them in the driver's seat. So the first step, if someone wants to stay on the planet and help create the new earth, the black goo is priority one. The first thing of releasing the black goo is to connect in the heart space. And I don't care if they call it God, I don't care if they call it source, what they call it. But they really take their hand, put it on their heart, and really connect to themselves. And what I did when I first started doing this is I went inside of myself and said, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I know that you're a part of me and I'm a part of you. That you're the ocean and I'm a drop in it. And I want your help. It's important to come to that place from a place of want and not need. Not I need your help. It's I want your help. The place of need is out of lack, and that it makes you more vulnerable. We have to say what we want and say, show me. Show me how to do this. Show me the way. I want to stay. I want to bring in the new earth. Show me how to remove the black goo. Show me how to hear you. Show me how to connect more deeply to my heart. That is detrimental to move forward. I'm getting a deeper knowledge about something that we can use. And it goes back to a decode that I did on what holds together life itself on an elemental level. And I want us to do a video on that. But I wanted to keep this one focused on getting the message out there that the first step is really get in the heart and make that connection and trust what's coming into your mind. Don't allow the thoughts to make you hesitate that it's not you, because it is. The only time it's not you is if the thought connects you to a hesitation or fear. If it feels, or sounds fearful, step away from it. And reconnect in to your heart, because it won't be fearful. The way we see this harvest happening, the nefarious make themselves appear as benevolent galactic beings. And they come through the dream state. They can come through physically, especially to some of the light workers who are very open to this energy. If that being does not understand that the option of leaving this planet right now is the harvest, and it's not in a good way, they are made to believe that it is something good and that they're reconnecting with their family. It will not happen as a outer experience unless they're allowing themselves to be harvested. And I mean, this is a lot of our friends, Todd.
Family and friends.
Yeah. Who think that all of this is a play toy. And we're talking billions. We can connect with beings who are benevolent, but it's going to happen from the inner. And it will happen through what's called the Merkaba. It will not happen as an abduction. And I talk about that in my post about the quantum bank. To be abducted and taken on a ship is these nefarious beings are literally abducting you to loose your energy, and you're going to be taken to a new location where you'll be rehooked in and reprogrammed like you are here on Earth. There's a galactic war that's happening, and it's for the consciousness of humanity. It's for the consciousness that was meant to organically be here and organically ascend. Those souls who leave in agreement will be put into another holographic experience, and they may or may not know it. My knowing is that they're going to think it's a good thing, and at first it may seem like they have found family, but we're not leaving them behind. So the second part of this message is the souls that appear to have died, appear to have committed suicide, appear to have left through COVID, or any other masquerade that they set up, the plague, whatever. They're not gone, but they have been reharvested and taken to another holographic experience. I haven't had sight of where that holographic experience is, but I do believe that the moon is involved. I know the moon is a satellite. It's both organic and inorganic. So I'm just sharing with you the pieces that I've been shown so far. The moon was put into place to keep the 3D reality in place, because it had to have a source of energy. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that we descended down from a higher energy to have a descended experience, but we had help along the way, and we got stuck in the reality that we have right now. So yes, it was part of our organic nature to descend and experience, but it wasn't part of our organic nature to be stuck in the first 3 dimensions. That wasn't part of the game plan. And it's been a long time coming where we have been intended to ascend, to go back up, to experience our light human self instead of the dark, the dark man. When I speak of the dark man, that is Satan. And that's what I wrote about in the article that I put on my Facebook page. And the light-bodied self is what we were supposed to step into a long time ago. So what I'm physically going through right now is intended for every single being that's on this planet. They just have to say yes. And no one can do it for them. And again, the first step in saying yes is to put their hand on their heart and simply know that God is the ocean, and each one of us are a drop of that ocean, and acknowledge that from within. Even if we're not religious, it doesn't have to be God isn't a religion. You view God as the ocean, and you are a drop in that ocean. You have to reconnect to your ocean. and it comes from the inside. And our dream states can be and have been defiled. Um, they have been able to come through our dream state to have interaction with us in a very trickster kind of way. I know someone who thinks they have been in electric wars for eons. Well, they have been in an electric war for eons. And it has been in a holographic experience to give them that experience of being in a war for all of eternity. Because it can keep you in there for all of eternity unless you choose to see the ocean and be the drop that says, I'm ready to come back to the ocean. And when you allow yourself to come back to the ocean, come back to that connection to source of what we are, to God, that's when God's going to start telling you directly. Because we're not meant to reach out and have something talk to us. It's to talk through us. It comes through a knowing. It comes through each other. It might be something you think is a coincidence, but it's not. Pay attention. But really connect into your heart and ground from there. Meditating helps. Not everyone can meditate. So after making that initial contact, if you're not one of those people who think that they can meditate, pick up a crochet needle and crochet. Pick up a piece of wood and do wood carving. Anything that takes your mind out of the outer and brings it here in front of you. That's where you need to be. And you can have the conversation with the ocean, with Source, with God in that space. So if cooking is what you love to do, start making soups. Start making whatever it is that you love to do. Make a fucking kitchen full of cookies. I don't care. But you got to come back home. And those who are out there working their asses off trying to put food on the table, you can do this before you walk out the door, and you can do it when you get home. And pay attention to when you are at work. If you're being commanded to do things that you don't want to do, you have to stand up and say no when you know it's not the right thing to do. And that'll start dismantling some of that energy. So there is an opening right now, but I don't know how long the opening is going to last. I sense it'll last till at least November. I don't know how much longer after that. But the more people that we can reach with this message so that they can take back their power to at least to a point where they cannot be harvested. So when they talk about in scripture about paying in the 10%, that's what it's about. Paying in the 10% is about your fears. It's not about money. You know, the churches have us putting money in a bin. It's not about that. It's about the energy within us being the abundance. And we actually produce gold within our physical bodies. And that gold is what they crave. That silver and gold. Humanity is filled with a lot more silver than gold right now because very few of us have found the God inside. But once you find this place of God inside, they'll never be able to take it away from you, ever. So I was also shown that we're moving out of the Iron Age. Pay attention to what you're eating. And I'm not going to tell people what to eat or what not to eat. But as you connect to God inside, you're going to start getting nudges of what to eat and what not to eat. Try to pay attention to what you're craving and not what your mind is telling you have to eat. Because this is also a key component into keeping people sick, physically sick. If you're connecting with your body from the heart space, as the energies on this planet are shifting and moving, which they are, so whether you choose to put your hand on your heart and say, I want to stay on Earth, I want to be a part of the new Earth, and connect with your ocean, with Source, with God, whether you choose to do that or not, you're going to go in one direction or another. You will either be harvested into another holographic experience, or you will stay on the new earth and you will be able to connect fully to your divine self. Little by little, we're all going to help each other expand our consciousness so that we are fully, individually connected to the Godhead and no longer ever abandon ourselves. We weren't meant to be fearful. We weren't meant to be afraid of being in our bodies. We were meant to be anchored here, living heaven on earth. And I understand now of what is written in the scripture. As it is in heaven, it is on earth. And that's not what we've been living. When we speak of the word hell, that's actually what we've been living. And they showed it to us in the Netflix series Once Upon a Time, and they showed it to us through the Lucifer series, when they show Lucifer down in hell watching people cycle and cycle and cycle, and they don't know they're in hell. So that's what we're doing. We have been cycling and we haven't been able to see it. That was one of the pieces I originally was connected to before I was able to unlock my first 3 chakras, is I could see the cycling that I thought was other people because it was shown to me in my dream state. And once I got the acknowledgement that that cycle that I saw other people doing, and I thought it was my job to teach them that they were cycling in the dream, was me cycling. It was showing me I was cycling. So if you're seeing those patterns in your dreams, that is the artificial intelligence interfering with your ability to ascend. So understand that your innate self is trying to show you, and that is you cycling. It's not something or someone outside of you. And if you can see your family in your dream and they're not in their presence yet, and you know it's a loved one that you haven't met yet, but you've seen them in your dream and they haven't shown up yet, it's because you're cycling outside of yourself instead of acknowledging that that dream is there to show you what's happening inside of you, not outside of you. So when you come to the place where you're able to align it together, then that which has been cycling outside of you then is before you. It aligns with you. But anytime something comes in and wants you to leave this planet, it's a trick. It's a complete trick. And they've used Hollywood as a way to keep us from waking up by telling us the same kind of story over and over. The hero savior story is there to keep you locked in to that 3D space where you're basically spinning in hell. That is hell, and you don't know it. And once you step out of it and see what heaven looks like, you don't have to spin in hell anymore. You don't have to work 24/7 just to put food on the table and pay the rent. You don't have to watch your loved ones get sick and pass away. You'll be able to cultivate your own life force energy within your vessel. There are a lot of teachers who have been using some of these forms already and teaching them, who have been locked themselves into the matrix. And once they unlock, you have the tools already to cultivate your own life force energy. And in that space, we're taking responsibility for our own energy field. It's not a government that's supporting us or taking care of us. We are literally taking responsibility for ourselves, our own well-being. We're back to what we were intended to be, a society working with each other. We were shown that through Avatar. A society that works in a symbiotic way, one that's working together. So we've been symbiotic to a parasitic relationship. So we've been symbiotic to something that has been governing us, and they have had us doing it to each other. And I couldn't see that as a nurse practitioner. Once I decided to give up my license and pull my heart out of my chest, that's when God showed me the real system, because he couldn't show me until I decided to give it up. And once I knew that what was happening, I knew I'd never go back. And once I allowed my license to lapse, to really show God I meant it, then I got more information. I really started to more quickly align with the Godhead. So the journey is a bit longer for those who are in these systems that believe they have to work these jobs. So it's not going to happen overnight, but you can do it. You just have to decide that you are the drop in a bigger ocean and you want to take the steps forward. This will keep you from being in the harvested and being taken off planet to another location. And I know for some it's going to be a very big stretch to believe what the fuck I'm saying, but gotta say it. And if it rings true on any level, it's not going to hurt you to say, I want to stay and bring in the new earth. So if there's any part of you that wants to stay, whether you believe the rest of it or not, go into your heart and let God know you want to stay. And this is also for those who see God as outside of themselves. There's nothing wrong with the path that you've taken, but take a moment and connect to that God that you've been praying to, and know that he is inside of you too. And really feel that drop of your water connect to his and say, "Show me the way." No one can do it for everybody's got to do it on their own. It's free will. If there was ever a time for a human being to take back their free will, it's now. It's a Hail fucking Mary now. And don't wait. The Hail Mary's here. And you're not going to see me on the fucking street corner with a sign trying to drag you down the street, because everybody gets the same decision, the same bridge. You can decide to go right into the eye of God, or you can decide to stay left. It's your choice. Please share this message with the kids. Talk to them. See what they're seeing in their dream states, especially the teenagers, the young adults, young millennials who are on medications because they think they have a chemical imbalance that they don't have. Really start talking to the kids and know what they're seeing. The newer ones that have come in are already God connected. So you'll know if they're God connected. They're not distracted by anything. But those who question themselves, who have depression, anxieties, who have shown signs, suicidal signs before, really connect with them, because this message is for them. And you, as the parent or the loved one, you have to make that connection. I think that's all that I have for this video, and we'll make another one. So we're not leaving anyone behind. But know that whoever is harvested, it will look like a physical death. And know that we are going to retrieve them. We're not leaving them behind.
They're not lost forever.
Right. We will not leave them behind. They will be given an experience that they may or may not know that it's the real you with them. So I think that's it for this video.
Video's complete.
Yeah. Stop it here.